Okay, ladies and gents, I'm back working on the GS this week, and I'm going to be swapping out the analog speedo for a digital speedo tacho rev counter. The reason for that is, particularly with older bikes, in this case the GS, you have a mechanical pickup for the rev counter. So exactly like the speedo cable, which is engaged off the wheel, a rev counter picks up off a mechanical input from the engine. So you just had a cable running to the top of the engine and picked up off the camshaft. So in previous episodes I've actually plugged that aperture within the engine. It's nothing permanent, but I've just put like a plug in there just to plug it up basically. So with a digital one, you do away with all of that, and you wire it into the electrical system to obviously pick up an electrical signal for the rev counter or tacho counter. So I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to go into the wiring system and play around with that. So yeah, a little bit of wiring, don't mind wiring, I actually kind of enjoy it. So if you guys are doing this kind of project at home on your bike, stick around. I'll show you where I can actually wire it into the system or pick up that signal. So another thing as well, I'd like to thank a few of you who commented on the halogen bulb that was in the light bucket. So your concerns were regarding the heat given off the bulb. You're absolutely right. Yeah, it's something that I had thought of, but I've not really got round to doing it. So I'm going to swap out the halogen bulb because there's a lot of electrical equipment in that bucket. I don't want it to be ruined or melted or burnt out. So I'm actually going to replace that with a full LED bulb. So LED bulbs, they don't tend to get hot. So yeah, I'm going to crack on with that. So stick around. Okay, side by side comparison of the two gauges. So I've just pulled this one off the bike. So I've had this wired in already. So fairly standard. You're not going to see anything on digital because there's no power to it. Right, so what we got power wise or cabling wise. So with the standard analog, I've just got the live feed. So this was just plumbed in to the original kind of power to the original clocks on the GS, so that wasn't a big issue. The earth wire or negative wire, I've got a post within the light bucket that I use as my kind of earthing, kind of some of the components in there, so that'll go directly to that. So I'm going to utilise those two cables for the digital clock. Now there are some additional cables on the digital clock. I've put the connections on them already, so as you can probably already have guessed. So the white and blue wire, this is the live feed to the speedo. So this is your backlight for the clock, and then the green is your earth or negative. So that will just go to the terminal that I've already got in there. Now, as well as that, we've got a black and red stripe. So the black is, well, in the description it refers to it as the speedo. Now this clock does have a mechanical speedo pickup, so I'm going to assume that that is the rev counter. Black and red, that's referring to it as the oil gauge. Again, could be right, but I'm more inclined to thinking it's probably a fuel kind of gauge. So where I purchased this off, so this come off eBay, so the description is, shall we say, translated. So it is translated, but it's not translated very well. So at the minute I'm just going to assume that, yeah, that's probably a fuel gauge and that is the rev counter. So we'll go with that, we'll see how it goes. Okay, so for wiring the bike up, I'm going to utilise a part of the loom that is not actually being used within the GS. So there is a connection that leads, well, the connection basically towards the middle of the loom, which is located around the coil packs. So I'm going to actually chip into it there, but then luckily for me as well, kind of runs up to the front of the light bucket. Now I was fully aware of this cabling. I could have pulled it out when I was kind of building the loom back up or tidying it up, but I kind of left it in there because I thought I may need to use it at some point. So I'm basically just going to use that track. So I'm just going to do a few tests on the cable first, make sure it's in good condition, and then I'm going to wire the clock or the dial into that. Right, so I'm at the coil packs and I need to wire into the negative side of the coil packs to pick up the signal to the tachometer. So I've got all the cable in down here. So what I've got is, so there's 2 coil packs on the GS. So the orange wire is your hot or your live wire feeding the primary side of the coil packs. And then the black and white is the negative side of them, and I need the negative side. So it doesn't matter which one I choose, the white or black, makes no difference. So basically all I'm going to do is disconnect one of them, so perfect. I'll put cut that off, put another bit of additional wiring in there, put a bullet connector and then connect that back up, and that's where I'll receive the signal from. Okay, so I'm going to give you a bit of a breakdown as to what I've actually done. So I've found the negative side of one of the coils, so the connector there, and then the existing connector which is halfway down located within the original loom. And all I've done is bridge that gap with a piece of wire. So then what will happen then is I will get a signal from the coil pack, and then that will lead down to the connector and then through the existing loom all the way up to the light bucket, which is where I will wire in the tacho. bad boy a shot. Now, if my calculations are correct, which they usually aren't, should still get obviously we'll get a spark, but I don't know if the starter has enough revolutions to turn over the motor to send a signal to it. We'll see. Good sign. Right, let's have a look. Yeah. Right, I don't know if you can see that. I'll tell you what. I'm going for a closer look. Working. I don't know if you can hear that as well, but that is there's a tiny little fan in the LED light unit. Well, I'd say that's mission accomplished.